Thanks very much. Thanks very much, everybody, for having me. So I didn't see the survey results, but if culture did not rank as number one, it should. I don't know if you've heard the saying by Herb Kelleher from Southwest Airlines, but he said culture trumps strategy, or culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it's true. If you focus on your company culture, everything else will take care of itself. So I'm going to get into how to build a world-class company culture and how to turn your company into a magnet for great people. Before I do, I just want to read a quick little survey, get a pulse from the audience. I'm going to read out a list of traits that describe entrepreneurs. And as soon as you hear 5 traits that describe you, I'd like you to stand up. Are you often filled with energy? Are you often flooded with ideas? Are you driven? Are you restless? Are you unable to keep still? That's 5. Are you often working on little sleep? Do you get euphoric? Do you burn out periodically? Do you act out sexually, which is like flirting? Stay standing, stay standing. And the last one is, do you feel persecuted by those who do not accept your vision? Don't sit down. If you're standing up, take a look around the room for a second. Those are actually not traits of entrepreneurs per se. Those are the clinical diagnosed traits for bipolar disorder. So there's a reason that I bring this up. I bring this up because I'm on a bit of a mission. Are any of you familiar with TED.com, TED Talks? So I did a talk that's on TED.com. It's been featured on the homepage. It's had a couple of million views now. It's about raising kids to be entrepreneurs instead of lawyers. And it talks about how you can identify entrepreneurial traits in children. And some of those traits are bipolar and attention deficit disorder, Tourette's, and narcissism. Most entrepreneurs would be clinically diagnosed as bipolar. In fact, when you say yes to 5 of the traits, those are the lists the doctor would use to diagnose you. If you say yes to 5, you'd be clinically diagnosed. Most of you in the room were saying yes to 8 or 9 or 10 of the 11. Bipolar disorder is nicknamed as the CEO disease by the medical community. And in the school system, we're always telling kids to sit still and pay attention and be like everybody else. Well, we can't be. We're entrepreneurs. We're not supposed to be like everybody else. So I'm on a bit of a mission to share these ideas with you to help actually groom entrepreneurial kids instead of medicating them. Imagine if we'd medicated Ted Turner, Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, Bill Gross, 2 of the 3 founders of Netscape. The list goes on, who were clinically diagnosed as bipolar or hypomanic. Anyway, that's not what I'm going to talk about today, but if you give me a business card and put TED on it, if you bring your card up or drop it off to me, I'll get you the link to the TED Talk so you can see it. What I am going to cover is how to turn your company into a magnet for great people. Just want to give you a little bit of a background on me so you know where this is coming from. I had the name Cameron a long time before she did. I'm married. We've got 4 kids, 2 little girls, 2 boys. We live in Phoenix. Love to golf, love to play tennis, love to drink red wine, and I like hanging out with my friends. Most of my friends are entrepreneurs. I grew up in an organization very similar to you. I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. I've started a number of different businesses. My first business that I was known for was called College Pro Painters. I was on the leadership team, the top 20 people in North America. It became the world's largest house painting company. We would go from 20 people at the head office to 800 franchisees to 8,000 painters, produce $60 million in revenue in the 4 months of summer, and then 8,800 people would go back to school, and we would rebuild another 9,000-person company from scratch every year. And I did that for 7 years on the leadership team. So I became very good at actually building and scaling and putting the operational systems in place to grow. My mentor at the time, Greg Clark, said to build an amazing business, it has to be slightly more than a business and slightly less than a religion. It has to be in that zone of cult or culture. And that's where I started to learn. At 21 years old, I had 12 full-time employees, but for me, the number 21 looks like the number 12. I have a form of dyslexia, and I flip a lot of my numbers down, so when I write them, it gets really confusing. Anytime a girl gave me her phone number, it was always wrong. I just didn't know if she didn't like me or if I wrote it down wrong again. I've also got 17 of the 18 signs of attention deficit disorder. My wife said if I was paying attention, I would have said yes to the 18th question. And by the way, when you have attention deficit disorder, this countdown clock is really, really irritating because it's like ticking, right? Oh. And this carpeting is going to drive me bizarre. I co-founded a group called Boyd Auto Body and Glass, which is the largest collision repair chain in North America. It's about a $700 million company now. Built another company that we sold in January of 2000 for $42 million, but we sold for stock. And about a month later, Steve Ballmer stood up and said there was an internet bubble. We're going, no, don't tell. So I ended up with what you see on the bottom right-hand corner. So then I just became a garbage man. I joined my best friend Brian, who had a company called the Rubbish Boys, and we rebranded it and called the company 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I was the 14th employee. When I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide. We were operating in 330 cities, 46 states, 9 provinces, 4 countries, had 248 people at the head office. We ranked as the #2 company in all of Canada to work for, and had twice ranked as #1 in British Columbia to work for. So we knew how to build the cult. Now what I do is I work behind the scenes and mentoring. I don't do what Marshall Goldsmith does with coaching. I actually work on the operations more in coaching CEOs who don't know how to build the company versus the skills of leadership. In this presentation, you're not going to see a lot of bullet points. There's not a lot of text on the screen. It's actually been proven you can't listen and read at the same time. So I'm going to burn this content into your minds with some visual cues as I'm talking to you. And it's going to feel a little bit like you're drinking from a fire hose today. Don't try to do everything I say. By the way, on the right-hand side of your handouts, if you grab your little booklet and pull your handouts, there's going to be a couple that you're going to want to be accessing. Try to just write down maybe the 5 most impactful things that you intend to do to grow your business. You've all got a copy of Double Double. If you I think we only thought 450 people were coming and 600 showed up. So if you need copies of it or additional ones, you can get them on Amazon. You can buy them in bulk if you send me a note. If you can't afford the book, I'll send it to you. On the last page of your handouts, just rip this page out. It's actually not for your notes. It's an order form for DVDs if you want to teach your employees this content. So pull the last page of the speaker's content out. Keep your mind open today that maybe I'm right. Maybe these ideas will work. Maybe these systems from a junk removal business will work. Culture is a mindset. Culture is a decision. If you look at these 2 companies, they're both technology companies. They both have billions of dollars in cash. They both hire computer engineers. They're both very successful. We know their brands. But which one do we know of for being a great place to work? Google. No one ever says Microsoft. I've been to both their head offices. Microsoft is like a morgue. It's true. Google, you don't want to leave. You just want to hang out forever. But it was by design. They created that. Culture is not about the free lunch. I'm going to talk to you about some systems that I've used with some of these companies to help them all win awards all over the world. I've worked with clients now in 10 countries to help them put the same systems in place to grow an amazing workplace. The first thing we do is called a painted picture. And by the way, do not leave this room until Eric Wall has finished his presentation at the end of the day. He's going to blow your mind with the paintings that he does. This painted picture is actually a written document. I gave you a copy of it in your handouts, and it's also covered in chapter 1 of my book, Double Double. The idea of a painted picture is something I learned from an Olympic coach. We went and sat down with this high-performance sports psychologist, and he talked to us about vision and how athletes would visualize themselves in the performance of the event. And we saw it happening in the Olympics. You could see the downhill skiers with their eyes closed, kind of moving their hands as they were skiing through parts of the course. Or the Canadian team as they were preparing to win another gold medal in hockey. I'm Canadian, by the way. The visualization that's used by athletes, we were taught, and we had no idea how to bring it into the workplace. So he gave us another analogy. He talked about Brooke Shields when she was getting married to Andre Agassi. She didn't like her legs. So she put a picture up on the refrigerator of the perfect legs that she wanted on her wedding day. Well, we know that the wedding didn't work out. She ended up getting married to, or Andre ended up getting married to Steffi Graf. The crazy thing was, those were Steffi Graf's legs that Brooke Shields had put. So the process of visualization worked. Unfortunately, it worked for Andre, not for Brooke. Again, we started to understand visualization. We didn't know how to carry it into the workplace. So he gave us the analogy of contractors, people that build homes or do renovations, construction. He said they get into the mind of the homeowner to figure out what the home is going to look and feel like at the end. And then they get the pictures and sketches, and they take all those things so they can really see what the finished product is supposed to look like, and they create blueprints from those, and then they give the blueprints to the workers, and the workers recreate the vision that the homeowner has. That started to make sense. What he was explaining to us was every entrepreneur, every CEO has a bit of a movie playing in our head. We can see what the company looks and feels like 3 years out, but no one else has been told what it looks like. So how do you expect them to have the same intuition, CEOs don't have any better intuition. They're just the only ones that have seen the movie. Who's seen the movie The Sound of Music? Put your hand up. Okay, who's never seen the movie The Sound of Music? Who has no idea what the movie The Sound of Music's about? What do you do in your spare time, dude? It's like a great movie. You're actually sitting beside a guy that I taught at MIT this year. Give him hell. Okay, so so you have no idea what it's about, right? You have no idea what it's about, though? Okay, so don't say anything, okay? No answers here. Just simple yes or no questions. There's a really famous scene in the movie where they're having a picnic. So I'm going to give you 3 questions, and I need you, I'm going to delegate this. You're my VP of sales. I need you to run this picnic for me, right? You got your MBA and all this fancy stuff. So is the picnic being held at a park or in the mountains or at a lake? Where's the picnic being held? At a park or at a lake or in the mountains? Mountains, okay, so we're going to have a picnic in the mountains. Where do they get the food? Do they get it at a grocery store or at a hut, or they bring it in a picnic basket? Picnic basket, okay? And are they playing croquet? Are they dancing? Are they playing baseball? Croquet, great. What the hell are you doing having kids like croquet? It's the Sound of freaking Music. There was a clue. What are you, an idiot? I can't believe we hire this guy. Give it to somebody else. I actually had this person one time in a speaking event said that they had the picnic at a park, they bought the food at Safeway, and they were playing croquet. What are you, a moron? This is like one of the most famous movies of all time. They're singing and dancing in the Swiss Alps, right? It's pretty clear. But if you've never seen the movie, how could you possibly recreate the scene? See, as entrepreneurs, we go away on vacation, we come back and we get pissed off at our key employees because they're screwing everything up and they just don't have the same intuition we have. And then we go to our Vistage group and we get pissed off and we tell everybody how we're just the only ones who've seen the movie. So here's how you actually communicate the movie. It's around this concept of conceive, believe, and achieve. And it's about going into the future, almost like leaning into the future in a time machine, going 3 years out, no further, and describing everything you see. You describe operations, you describe finance, describe marketing and IT, describe engineering. You describe every part of your org chart as if it's already completed 3 years out. Describe what your customers are saying, describe what the market's saying, describe what the media is writing about you. Describe it in vivid detail as if it's already happened. You can't describe how it's happened because you've gone into the future, you're describing it in present tense. Just like as a homeowner, I don't care how you build it, it just has to look like this with the Wolf stove with the cool red knobs. I don't care how it all happens, just that's what it needs to look like. As CEOs, we shouldn't care as much about how as about where. When you're writing a painted picture, you got to get out of the box. You can't sit in your office and write this. You got to go somewhere where you're inspired, somewhere around nature, the mountains, at a park, at a lake, at the ocean. Go sit somewhere where you're inspired and do a mind map. Just describe different aspects of your business as if it's already taken place. Don't worry about how perfect it is. Just get a bunch of bullet points down, and then when you come back to your office, organize your bullet points up into maybe paragraphs. Once you get that done, you're going to hand it to someone and have them write it. Lots of the CEOs I work with actually send some work off to a writer that we have on contract, and this writer makes it jump off the page. Our job, again, as a CEO isn't to be able to write perfectly, it's to be able to give them the content so that a writer can make it jump off the page, and then you get some graphic design elements included to really make it pop. 2009, I was teaching at the MIT program. It's called the Entrepreneurial Masters Program, and I was teaching a CEO from Geneva in Switzerland, and I taught him this concept of the painted picture. Sebastian wrote his 2012 painted picture when he was going to go from 104 million to 500 million in revenue. And then he described every aspect of his business. It was a convention and meeting organizing company. 3 years later, Sebastian did $504 million in revenue and $120 million in EBITDA. His profit was bigger than his revenue had been 3 years before. He then did the 2015 painted picture, leaning out again, describing what his company was going to look like 3 years out at $1 billion in revenue. I got an email from Sebastian about 4 months ago. He was completely giddy. His second biggest competitor in the world had just gone bankrupt. 2015 is a fait accompli. It's almost done. When you actually lean out into the future and you communicate what you're building and you can start to align your teams, that's where culture happens. That's why culture kicks strategy's ass. Culture is where it starts, and alignment is where culture starts. Your graphic design elements can include kind of parts of your business. This is for a bilingual preschool chain. Your painted picture has to attract people like a magnet to it, and it also has to push people away. It has to repel them. It's not supposed to be for everybody. If it's for everybody, no one cares. In In fact, when you watch my TED Talk, you either love it, like this room will love it, but if you're on the left, or if you're like a bunch of teachers or educators or lawyers, you hate it. You think I'm the Antichrist. But when you're pro-capital, like Ayn Rand would have thought this thing was awesome, right? She wrote Atlas Shrugged. So this whole thing about like your painted picture has to attract and repel. But when it's written in that way, it will completely align your organization. You'll also find out there's a few people in the organization that shouldn't be there. I ran this presentation for a client's company one time, and we were presenting to the entire room, probably 80 employees. And at the end of this presentation, Dean stood up and he said, I'm going to read to you our painted picture for our company. He read it out, and at the end of about 5 minutes, he said, about 15% of you hate what you just heard. He said, that's okay. It's probably the right time for you to quit. But he said, there's 85% of us that are vibrating in our seats. We're so excited because we know what we're going to build. And then he clicked to the next slide, and he said, tomorrow when you go back to the office, go to this address, because today when we've been off-site at this retreat, I had a moving company come, and they've moved the entire office to the new company. People were, holy shit, like they didn't even know they were moving. If you liked that, you were on. 15% of his employees did quit, and 2 years later, Dean ranked as the number 2 company to work for in British Columbia. The number 1 company to work for was another client of mine, Nurse Next Door. It starts with alignment. You can take your painted picture and start writing it up on the wall, taking little snippets of it to have people lean out into the future and imagine what they can see in the future as well. Now, when you're rolling out a concept like this, it feels really stupid. I'll show you what it feels like. This person dancing is you, the CEO. You're communicating vision, painted picture, and everyone around you is going, what's he talking about? Because it doesn't look like today at all. All of your VPs of engineering are sitting around, and they're not standing up because they think you've lost it. Your wife is sure you've lost it. Your lawyer, your accountant, your suppliers are convinced you've gone crazy. A sales guy usually joins in, though. Right? Sales guys, we're not too smart, but they'll join in with this vision thing. Engineering, IT, finance, there's no way they're having any part of it. Your Vistage group moderator thinks you completely lost your parts. And you keep communicating your painted picture. Jim Collins talks about this. He says you have to keep communicating until people are making fun of you, and only then you realize your ideas have started to stick. Sales guy keeps dancing with you. You keep dancing. Marketing guy joins in. Sales guy leaves. CEO keeps dancing. I'm going to keep communicating the vision, the vision, the vision, the vision, the vision until people are sick of hearing about it. And then all of a sudden the sales guy comes back in. A couple of operations people are going to join in. And now people are going, maybe there's something here. A couple engineering guys show up. A couple of girls in operations. A couple of suppliers join in. A couple of your employees quit. This is what it felt like the first time we ranked number 1 to work for in British Columbia, but we still had some people that were sitting around us thinking we were nuts. The CEO has to communicate vision over and over and over again and obsess about culture and vision until the alignment starts to happen, and it does happen. But you'll see that there's people sitting close to you that are never going to stand up and dance. Those are cancers in your company, and you have to get rid of them. You have to get the cancers, the toxins out of your company, just like we do with our bodies. This is what it felt like the second time we won number 1 to work for. We were getting 250 resumes for every job posting. Goes on for about another minute when 45,000 people ended up dancing because one guy had a vision and he was going to dance until everybody danced. Now, at the end of the day, when there were 45,000 people dancing, after about 4 minutes, there were still some of the people sitting close to him that were not going to stand up. Like, this is stupid. I'm not going to do it. Fucking, how's that working for you? Because you can fire those people, right? That's the cool thing about CEO is we actually get to tell our teams at times to get the cancers out of the organization. Now, vision without execution is hallucination. You can't just put this painted picture out there and think it's going to happen. You've got to put some stuff behind that. And that's where Jim Collins was talking about getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and everybody in the right seats. The problem with Good to Great is he didn't teach us how to do it. As entrepreneurs, we need the tools to actually do this. So I'll kind of fast forward you on a little bit. But it is about getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. The reason he talks about this group called the Merry Pranksters, led by Ken Kesey, is they were traveling around the United States in the early 60s tripping on acid. Their mantra was, you're either on the bus or off the bus. And what they meant by that was, you either get it or you don't. You're either with us or you're not. Well, that's the same with your company. You want people in your organization that buy into this vision and are going to help make it happen, and if they don't buy in, you got to get them out. Getting more and more of those zealots into your organization is where the cult starts to happen. I wrote an article years ago for the Kaufman Foundation, and they asked me to talk about recruiting and tie it to an analogy, so I talked about duck hunting. One of my grandfathers owned a high-end hunting and fishing